homicide.
Suffice it that the blood of 1,000 men and women was spilled within these walls. Limbs twisted and broken, eyes gouged from bloody sockets, flesh burned black.
Please. No way to dead. In death, there are no accidents, no coincidences, no mishaps, and no schemes. What you have to realize is that we're all just a mouse that a cat has by the tail.
You are listening to 90.9 WQFS. Welcome to Jay Scott's World of the Unexplained. Tonight, your host, Jay Scott, will guide you through the world of the paranormal. If you are faint, weak of heart, or fear the unknown, then turn your radio off now. Otherwise, listen at your own risk.
The number you have reached, 911, has been changed to a non-published number.
Hi, Mollie.
Yes, hi.
Jay Scott. How are you?
Hey, I'm fine. How are you?
Great. I guess we'll start out talking about all the different places your tours have received a lot of great acclaim, I guess, from Where Magazine and the Boston Globe for outstanding ghost tours. 5 stars is what it was rated by Frommer's, I believe.
Frommer's, well, that was regarding the ghost tours, the vampire tours, and the voodoo tours from New Orleans first.
Oh, okay.
Because I was featured down there. I did tours down there for almost 5 years before I moved up to Salem, Massachusetts a couple of years ago and started a whole new company. I sold my old tour company.
That was Bloody Mary Tours.
No, Spellbound Tours.
Spellbound Tours.
What am I saying?
Yeah, New Orleans.
Absolutely Fabulous Tours was the name of my company in New Orleans.
Okay.
I sold that, and then I moved up here and created Spellbound Tours in 2000.
All right. Great.
And because of my ghost tours in New Orleans, this is really what triggered my interest in becoming a real ghost hunter, not just doing ghost tours or being a ghost tour guide. In New Orleans, people would come up after the tours and tell me stories of either visitations or growing up in haunted houses or things like that. And they were very sincere. Sometimes they'd burst into tears as they tell me about loved ones coming back to see them. And I knew that these people were not lying, and I knew they weren't crazy. But I thought, how is it possible to document, record ghost activity? There's got to be some kind of scientific method, or somehow you can prove it. Because just because you say something is haunted doesn't mean it is, right?
You need the empirical data, I guess.
Right.
So you're a licensed ghost hunter through the International Ghost Hunter Society?
Correct.
And creator of Paranormal Investigators of New England.
Yes, but Paranormal Investigators of New England is not a society where I allow memberships or things like that. It's actually a private company that specializes in paranormal investigations and research.
So if someone had a ghost problem, they would call you and you would come out and investigate.
Correct. I bring my own team. We don't charge for our investigations. However, I do ask for permission to write about the results.
That's what you're
something,
saying.
really interesting, unusual, etc.
You want to document it and let people know about it.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's how I got my first ghost book. Is I did investigations at different places, but in my book that I published, Ghosts Among Us, I actually incorporated ghost investigations from New Orleans because that's where I started the book.
Yeah, I've noticed a lot of that is in New Orleans.
Yeah, and then there's some places here in Salem, and I included Alcatraz, the old prison off San Francisco. So it wasn't just one city or the other. But I'm already doing research for a bigger book, a second book.
Well, that's great. No, I can't mention any prices on the air, unfortunately.
No, that's fine.
But I can tell everyone that this book, Ghosts Among Us by Mollie Stewart, is available at the Spellbound Tours website, which is www.spellboundtours.com. That's spellboundtours.com. And she also gives tours in Salem, Massachusetts, if you're going to be in that area.
But my tours only run May through the end of November, and then everything pretty much shuts down in Salem for the winter. Not absolutely everything, but there's no more walking tours after that. It's too cold, too snowy, typical New England, right?
Definitely. Now, I see on your website that you give vampire tours as well.
Well, our evening tour is called the Vampire and Ghost Hunt Tour.
Okay.
And basically 90% of that tour is taking you to documented haunted sites. And we're going to tell you the haunted history of each location, who the ghosts are, pretty much why they're there. And about 10% of the tour is just New England vampire cases, early New England vampire cases, and a little bit about Dracula and modern vampirism.
Now,
the vampires are not necessarily in Salem, although I've talked to one person who thinks he's a vampire.
Claims to be
drank blood from somebody, but
great.
90% of our tour is a ghost hunt and a real, paranormal tour, and just small portions about the vampirism and vampire legend.
Yes, I saw something about a vampire protection kit from the 1800s.
Yes, this is available. Well, it was available last time I looked in New Orleans at an antique shop. And it's from the 18th century, and people traveling to Central Europe were encouraged to buy these kinds of vampire protection kits. And typically what they would have, they have a crossbow which shoots silver arrows only, or perhaps a gun that shot silver bullets only. They have a huge, very sharp wooden stake. They have a crucifix. They have holy water. They have blood purifiers, iron supplements, and some kind of anti-venom treatment. They have something called garlic powder, which is a small round tin where they took garlic, they dried it, crushed to a very fine powder like baby powder. So if you didn't have fresh garlic to hang in front of the vampire's face or around your neck or over a doorway, you just unscrew the lid of this and blow the powder directly into the vampire's face. Like garlic powder, and that would supposedly send them shrieking into the night. But these were actually sold to people going to Central Europe, especially from London, etc., who might be traveling to Central Europe, which is supposedly chock full of vampires and the undead. So this was quite a serious item to purchase.
Now, do you personally believe in the vampire in the folklore sense of the term?
Well, I know how it all started, and yes. I do believe there are vampires out there, but what we're dealing with in modern times is no such creature that's immortal, that changes into bats, wolves, myths, things like that. What we're dealing with are psychotic and very dangerous individuals who have, again and again, resorted to murder, to get somebody's blood, to smear it on themselves or whatever. I do keep a file in my office of unusual homicides that involve either bloodletting rituals or more particularly blood drinking rituals. And in the last 15 years, there's quite a trend towards that. And also, I did spend the last 8 years in New Orleans, and there's been some very strange murders having to do with vampirism down there.
Anne Rice is at home there, so.
That's Anne Rice.
And that's I'm sure that movie just by itself, the movie and the books that she wrote probably encouraged some of this goth culture and some of this.
Well, it encouraged a lot of dress up down there, that's for sure.
Yeah,
and, every October she does. Well, she has for many years had this Halloween bash, which is a vampire's ball of some sort, and at least 4,000 to 5,000. Just jam on down to New Orleans from across our country or even overseas to participate, dressed in, the whole vampire regalia as characters from her books or their interpretation of a vampire or a 21st century vampire, etc. And if you're not familiar with what's happening in New Orleans the last weekend in October, it's pretty bizarre.
That sounds like it.
But also people disappear from New Orleans all the time that never make it home. They're never seen or heard from again. And I'm not saying just in October, certainly.
Yeah.
They disappear all year round from there. And there's a lot of strange characters who are attracted to the French Quarter. They are attracted to the dark underworld, and they really believe when they get to there's a huge vampire culture, which really there isn't. It's pretty small, pretty select. But there's, certain vampire bars and things like that where they can hook up with these kinds of people. and that's where the fun begins.
Well,
they think it is.
I wasn't sure because I'd seen that. I'd read. I'm sure you're probably familiar with Sean Manchester and the Highgate Vampire, all that business.
You mean from England?
Yes, yes.
Oh, of course.
And that's why I was wondering if, because he claims to have actually slayed this Highgate Vampire, and I was wondering if you felt or if you believed in the same kind of things that they're actually real instead of just a psychotic problem or a mental illness. If these things are the actual immortality, the myth.
No, of course not. I think
Okay.
that's all foolishness.
Okay.
Basically, I believe that there's mentally disturbed individuals who take their role playing too far, or they flipped out a little bit too far, gone over the edge, and they really believe they're vampires. And I've known some in New Orleans who only come out at night. They only work night jobs. They're never seen in daylight. They always dress in black. They have the custom fangs, vampire teeth, the custom contact lenses. They, dye their hair jet black, and they really take themselves quite serious.
Just an obsession.
Being vampires.
Huh. Okay, well, off the vampire subject for a little bit. Tell me a little bit about the International Ghost Hunter Society.
Okay, the International Ghost Hunter Society is an organization that tries to always physically document and only physically document any kind of haunting paranormal activity. And the membership basically is open to anybody. If you go onto my website and you go onto the links page, you'll see their logo there. So if you want to click on directly to them and find out what they do, they have a huge website. They have tons of ghost photos to show you, real photos. Then they have a section of phony ghost photos. You know how to discern the difference between the two.
Oh, that's neat.
But what they do is they encourage people to take ghost hunting seriously and try your hand at ghost photography. They do offer courses. Like I became a licensed ghost hunter through them. Apparently they now offer parapsychology courses through their organization. So you become a parapsychologist. Basically that's somebody who's very knowledgeable or an expert in the supernatural worlds of ghost haunting, psychic phenomena. I am a parapsychologist, but I became one before they offered their courses through the Stratford Institute in Washington. So depending on where you live, what part of the country you're in, there's different schools and organizations that can offer these courses. But the International Ghost Hunter Society travels around the world, and they do investigations at all kinds of places, whether it's cemeteries, battlefields, churches, hotels, plantations, bed and breakfast, etc., to physically document any kind of ghost activity. They do a lot of research on, who lived there at what time, were there accidental deaths, were there murders, were there suicides, things like that, to, focus on exactly what happened, who died there, and who the ghosts are at this time.
And this membership's open to anyone that has an interest.
Well, it's open to anyone. Of course, there's a membership fee, but that's pretty minimal. But if you want to pursue ghost hunting further, they have all kinds of courses to help you along if you want to, go into the field more in depth. But they also have a very big website that gives you, lots of free information about ghost photos and things like that.
Okay. Now I know you told me before, jump around again here for a little bit, you told me before that you had a video coming out, Ghost of Salem?
Yes, I have a video coming out in about 10 days, I guess.
Wow.
In October, let's put it that way. And it's called Ghost of Salem, and it is somewhat of a promotional video for our ghost tour, but we have actual footage during the ghost tour with our guests going on the tour just as if it was your first time. Part of the video is about my other company, Paranormal Investigators of New England, where we actually demonstrate the ghost hunting equipment to you. We explain how it works. We tell you certain things that you should not do. We try to offer advice. We talk about Ouija Boards. We talk about seances and a couple other things. And this will be, as I said, available in early October, also from the website. Or if people do come up to Salem, they want to come on our ghost tour, we'll bring that with us on the tour along with our book, Ghosts Among Us.
Okay. Now, why did you become a ghost hunter exactly?
Well, after I said doing all these tours in New Orleans and hearing all these stories from people who are very upset about visitations from deceased loved ones, things like that, I thought, how can I help this person resolve their fears or learn to accept a ghost or deal with this person in a logical, rational manner where they wouldn't be always sad or always fearful or whatever, or even get the ghost to move on. So after being introduced to various ghost hunters around New Orleans, intuitives that I had gone on ghost hunts with and talking to them for a long time, I eventually heard about the International Ghost Hunter Society, who, as I said, physically documents everything. I thought, okay, here is a way to prove the ghosts really exist, and they're going to teach me about why the ghosts haunt, why they stick around, why they appear to certain people, why they seem to linger and not move on. And once I learned all that and became quite knowledgeable, then I can share this information with people, and they, on their own, will be able to deal with the spirits in a rational manner, but not fearful.
Uh-huh.
And a lot of times when I start my ghost tour, and it does not just include haunted sites, but we talk about why the ghosts haunt and the main theories as to why they linger, people, they start to glean this information, and by the end of the tour, I can tell they're not afraid of spirits anymore. They don't feel like they're going to be harmed, like these awful movies. They're always showing somebody get killed, choked, beheaded by ghosts or whatever, a bunch of nonsense. But I hope to be able to put people at ease, at peace with what's happening with the spiritual, beings around them, and hopefully get them to accept them, deal with them, and find some kind of peace, resolve, whatever. And it's amazing that in the last X amount of years, I've had people email me. I mean, I've just got stacks and stacks of testimonials from people about not just how much they enjoyed the tour, how much they learned, but that they had a visitation that night, a couple nights later, from a deceased loved one.
Oh, Lord.
And they thought it was a dream at first, but they were conscious enough to remember what I told them on the tour, and they had conversations with their, deceased mother, spouse, children, whatever, and were able to communicate their sadness and how much they missed them, things like that. But they always wound up with this final result that the spirit came to them and told them, please, do not worry about me. I'm at peace. I'm in a beautiful place now. Don't feel guilty. Don't feel sad. I'm fine now. I love you. I will protect you, but don't be sad. And that was the bottom line to me, is that they were at peace, and they could finally tell their family members, don't be sad. I'm okay, and I'm here. I love you.
No. You said that most of these ghosts won't harm you.
No.
Going back to the movie.
I don't believe ghosts harm anyone. Although one time I was kind of given a shove from behind, and I kind of fell down to my knees. But I'm walking in the woods. Gee, surprise. But no, I don't believe ghosts can physically harm you.
No, I know. You said a ghost saved your life once.
Yeah. Well, let me finish this one
Oh,
thing.
go ahead.
As far as ghosts harming you, I've talked to one ghost hunter in 7 years that thinks he was choked by a ghost. And when I got into more detail with him, I found out that he's extremely religious. He brings crucifixes, Bibles, holy water, rosary beads, the whole shebang on ghost hunts. And you can't just flash those things around because it can aggravate the spirits. And I think what happened in the situation where he thinks he was choked, he was so scared. He was reacting. It was a physiological reaction to fear. And what he was reacting to was so intense that he felt like he was choking, like as if there was a hand around his throat. I have been so scared myself in an earthquake when I used to live in California that was just unbelievable, huge earthquake, that I couldn't scream, I couldn't talk, I couldn't breathe, might as well have been choked. And I was trying to say something, I was trying to scream, I didn't know what was going on.
Just paralyzed with fear.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's what happened to him, because I've never talked to any other ghost hunter anywhere in the world that thinks they were choked or, tried to be murdered by a ghost. I think that's asinine.
Going back, though, I know you'd said in your book that you'd been, I think you were pushed aside and saved by a ghost.
No, I wasn't pushed.
Okay.
What happened was a ghost saved my life. And
All right.
When I was in junior college, this was a real wake-up call for me. It's in my book, but to make it a long story short, my friend and I were going to an apartment building, and he was the manager, and he had to check the carpets and drapes in each apartment to see if they needed cleaning. So he would go in with a clipboard and say, yes or no to the living room, carpet curtains, yes, no to the bedroom. and we were going apartment to apartment. If nobody answered the door after several knocks, he had a master key. We went to one door, and nobody answered, so we put the key in the lock to go in, and a voice whispered to me, "Move away from the door, he's got a gun." Just like that. And I don't know what it was. I don't know who it was. I just, boom, stepped to the left of the doorway out of harm's way. And my friend looked at me like, what's your problem? And he went into the apartment. Well, this is all happening as he's putting the key in the door and opening it up. So I didn't even have a chance to say, "Oh, gee, something's going on." He goes in the apartment, and he goes into the bedroom, and he comes out about a minute later. Okay, no big deal. And he shuts the door. We start to walk down the hall towards the next apartment, and I said, "Steve," the weirdest thing just happened. And as I said that, the apartment door opened up behind us that he just walked out of. And here's a guy dripping wet with a bath robe on and a shotgun cradled in his arm.
Jeez.
And he said to me, he goes, "Man, you are so lucky you left when you did." He goes, "I was in the tub. I saw the bedroom light come on. I heard a voice." He says, "As soon as he goes, I thought I was getting robbed." He says, "I saw the bedroom light go off." And he says, "I jumped out of the tub, put on my robe, and grabbed my shotgun from the closet, and you were just closing the door as I came out." He says, "If you'd been there a second earlier, man, I could have shot you." And I was like, oh, my God. My mouth was almost to my knees. And when I told Steve what happened later on, he couldn't believe it either.
That's a wake-up call, isn't it?
Yeah. I don't believe I had any relatives who had passed on or were deceased at the time, but let me tell you something. That got my attention. I didn't hesitate. I didn't double think it. As soon as the voice said, "Move away from the door, he's got a gun," boom, I was out of the way. It was like a command, and I don't know who or what that was or why. But this is way before I became a ghost hunter, although I have been interested in the supernatural for years and years and years since I was a kid.
Now, can you explain to me some of the equipment that you carry on when you go on these hunts, when you prepare yourself?
Oh yeah, and this is also in the video Ghost of Salem. Your basic ghost hunting equipment, as far as I'm concerned, is the Emf Detector, and that is called the electromagnetic meter.
Uh-huh.
It's very small, and what it does is it measures electrical magnetic influences movement in the immediate vicinity. So when you go on a ghost hunt, you can place this in a room. When the spirits come close or start being very active nearby, it triggers a needle gauge which moves further and further to the right of the dial. And the further it moves to the right, the closer the ghosts are, and it also has sort of an alarm system which makes a high-pitched noise, and the louder that gets, that also means the ghosts are close. So this alerts you that the ghosts are coming or here, and it's time to work your tape recorders, it's time to turn on your cameras, etc.
I see what you're saying. It's kind of, I guess, the science behind that, meaning the electromagnetic field, is somehow changed by these spirits, or?
Well, they seem to be composed of some kind of electromagnetic energy after they leave the physical form.
Oh, okay.
Now, also, you have to be very careful that you don't have this equipment by an electrical outlet or a computer or a telephone or a fax machine, because any kind of wiring can also trigger the needle gauge, etc.
Give you a false reading.
Now, exactly. It'll give you a false reading. I don't have to worry about that when I'm up at Gallows Hill or I'm in a cemetery, because there's nothing like that nearby. So when you're in a building, you always want to do a walkthrough first. Take a very close look. The baseboards, the walls, make sure there's no electrical outlets or any equipment that will do that. So you want to keep it away from that kind of stuff. Okay, the infrared non-contact thermometer is a piece of equipment, looks like some kind of radar, funky space gun from a cartoon, but actually it measures the temperature. When the spirits arrive or become active, the temperature does drop up to 30 or 40 degrees in a matter of 2 or 3 seconds.
Really?
That's true. And this piece of equipment, you point it anywhere in a room, you pull the trigger, and it gives you the temperature readout for exactly 7 seconds. So at that point, hopefully you'll record in your journal at 10:43 p.m. the temperature dropped, for example, from 70 degrees to 31 degrees, something like that. It's backlit. There's a backlight dial, so even if you're in a pitch-black room where the electricity goes out, you just punch that button, and it will give you that readout in the dark for 7 seconds also. and this is very important to have because you want to document everything you can as scientifically cleanly as possible.
Uh-huh.
I also use a mini cassette recorder, which, of course, the tapes are so small that I think it only records for 30 minutes, usually each side, maybe 45 minutes top, and you have to change that over. So my newest toy that I like is called a VOR, a voice-operated digital recorder. And what this does, first of all, it saves you an awful lot of tape because once you turn it on, it will only actually click on and record if there's voices, if there's noises being made. And once the voice or the noise stops, it stops too. But it doesn't shut off the tape recorder. It just works only when there's some kind of noise or voice. So it saves you a lot of tape fooling around.
That's definitely good.
Yeah, and you can buy these at Radio Shack, places like Best Buy, whatever, that carry any kind of electronics equipment. They will have the VOR, the voice-operated recorders, mini cassettes. Of course, you have to have a camera.
Yeah, and I noticed you mentioned using 400 speed film for low light and fast action.
Correct. Any kind of camera is essentially capable of taking ghost photos. I mean, I've seen photos from disposables, Polaroids, if you believe that, digital and video. But with 35-millimeter cameras, most ghost hunting organizations recommend at least 400 speed film, which is specifically for low-light, fast-action conditions. One of the reasons people do not see ghosts with the naked eye is they just move like a fraction of a second. They're gone. They're there and gone. And by the time the brain is registered, I think I just saw something, history, it's already moved on. With high-speed film, you're actually like freeze-framing, slowing down the ghost action. Even though you can't see it, the camera can. And many times I tell people, just because you can't see the ghost right in front of you doesn't mean the camera won't pick it up. On the tour, we're going to real documented haunted sites.
Uh-huh.
You know, they've been investigated by other people, not just myself. And I'll tell them, I can tell when the spirits are here. My hair stands up on my neck. It stands up on my arms. I get goosebumps. I start to get kind of shivery from the cold. Sometimes my eyes water. And I don't want to spook people on the tour because they might just run off freezing into the night, and that has happened. But I'm telling them, take your pictures now. Take your pictures now. I can tell the spirits here. And even if I don't see it, I can feel it. Most people probably aren't that attuned, but I've been doing ghost hunts professionally since '99, and I started before that unprofessionally doing my, first one. But yeah, the ghosts move too fast. So with high-speed film, I personally, if I have a 35-millimeter, like 800 speed film, I do a lot of ghost photography in graveyards. I go up to Gallows Hill, which is in the woods, and there's no light. I mean, you were just stumbling around in the dark. So the only light you will have, and you do have to use your flash. The only light you have is from your flash on the camera. But with a high-speed film, you're freeze-framing it, and I get some incredible photos with the high-speed film.
And I just want to let everyone know that's listening that these are also available at your website, www.spellboundtours.com.
Yeah, the ghost photos. We have 2 pages of photos on the website. Now, one page are just my ghost photos from various locations, but the second page are just customers' pictures taken during my tour. And
that's amazing. They just send these back to you?
Some incredible photos. Yeah, I'm just knocked out sometimes when I get these things. And these people have, never seen a ghost photo in their life. They're like, oh,
look what I found.
That's a good one. That's a good one. But, yeah, because we go to these heavily, haunted places, there's a good chance that they will capture them on film. And when they come on the tour, I'm telling you, it's not just a ghost tour. I'm not going to be some boring lecture standing here going blah, blah, blah. This is where the ghosts are now. And, if you're smart, you pay attention and start taking your pictures. And they come away with some amazing photos.
Now you were telling me about some of the equipment that you used. And I don't know if I've seen this in a movie, and I don't know how accurate it is. Okay. So it was a Stephen King movie. I think it was made for TV. Rose Red, I believe, is the name of the film.
Yeah.
Now the lady there that was conducting all the scientific research, she had some kind of machine that counted the number of people in the room, supposedly.
Never heard or seen anything like that.
Okay. All right. I was just wondering. That was my own personal.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty amusing. It was, what was it,
Locator or something like that. Yeah.
Never seen that.
However,
if it's on the market, I'd like to know where to order one.
Definitely.
how accurate they are. I mean, let me tell you something. Don't believe everything because it's on TV. All right?
Oh, I don't. That's why I was asking. Now, what? You've got the book. You do the tours. You do the ghost hunts. What other than the video do you have planned for the future, or do you have anything planned as of yet? As far as
obviously I have some irons in the fire, but I'm not at liberty to speak about them.
Okay.
I don't want to jinx myself.
I understand.
Old school people that if you talk about it too soon, you'll ruin it. However, I am planning to go to England and Scotland during this winter to do ghost hunts. Tombstone, Arizona.
Wow.
Of course, I will go home to New Orleans, which I always do, at least once, usually for Mardi Gras.
Understandable.
And I'm basically researching for a second book. I also mentioned, I think earlier, that I will be going to the Lizzie Borden house, the B&B down in Fall River, Massachusetts, later on this year.
That's
at the end of the
exciting.
year, or sometime this winter, with my crew to do an overnight investigation there. But as far as the big projects, I can't talk about those right now.
Okay, no problem.
Trading on the video that I'm trying to wrap up in the next 4 or 5 days to be able to distribute in October.
All right. Let's see here. You mentioned in your book that as a ghost hunter, you have to protect yourself. You have to. You said a lot of different hunters have different rituals. But what exactly do you do to protect yourself before a hunt? How do you prepare?
Well, I don't want to say everything. One of the common things, though, that most people do is they try to protect themselves with what's called the white light, and there's several different techniques. There is a psychologist called Edith Fiore, Fiore, who did publish a book, The Unquiet Dead, that is now out of print.
Oh, really?
And she used to deal with people that were having problems with work, their families, jobs, whatever, and it turns out they apparently were possessed by some kind of spirit that just ruined their relationship, their careers, their life, everything, until she could get the spirit to move on. And she talks about a white light technique that's a little bit different from what some of my intuitives use, but basically you try to envision that there's this brilliant white protective light inside your body, and you try to visualize it intensely going from, the center of your body to the top, the bottom, head to toe, and then emanating outside of your body almost like a protective shield, to put it, in simple terms. And this will protect you from any kind of negativity, any evil spirits, any harm while you're conducting a ghost investigation, or whoever does exorcisms, things like that. Maybe they do it for that too. But basically you're just trying to, keep any negativity and harmful spirits away from you, from entering your body, taking over you physically, mentally, etc. And there's different techniques for protecting yourself. Some people splash holy water on themselves and say certain prayers. Depends on your religious background and things like that. But basically, you do want to protect yourself somehow. However you think it's going to work for you, whatever little ritual you want to do, or, things like holy water, etc. You want to wear a certain thing around your neck, or you might have a gree bag, a voodoo bag to, protect you before you do some of the ghost hunts or you actually interact with a spirit.
No, that brings me to an important question, one that I'm really curious about your answer. You say that ghosts, you've never been hurt by a ghost.
Nope.
The only person, but then you did bring up evil spirits and obviously protecting yourself. What's the difference?
Well, people, here's a big problem, and this has been going on for, especially in the United States since the 1930s. People fooling around with Ouija boards and seances.
Inviting these spirits.
Inviting the spirits in. Whether you think it's a parlor game or you're just having a party and you think this might be fun, or it's Halloween.
So you're opening yourself up to that, then?
Yeah. You are whatever it is that you're doing, fooling around with, if you are intentionally inviting spirits in, that's what's going to happen. And the problem is, just because seance is over or you put the Ouija board away, I'm tired now, I want to go night-night, doesn't mean the spirits are going to leave. And the stronger spirits, the more malevolent ones, are the ones that tend to stay behind. And how do you get rid of a spirit if you're not a medium, a channeler, somebody very experienced? You don't. You can't. You have to remember, The Exorcist, for example, was based on a true story, but it was not a young girl fooling with a Ouija board. It was a young boy.
11-year-old boy.
And he became possessed by spirits. Apparently they were quite evil. I don't know if they're demons or not, but anyway, the point being, he was all messed up for a long time, and it took the Catholic priest over 30 exorcisms to rid this child of these spirits, to try and get him, into a normal frame of mind. And he was fooling with a Ouija board. And people come to me, after the tour and say, well, we like to use Ouija boards, once a month, or, we do it every year and try and talk to so-and-so. I go, listen, you Nimrod, don't do that.
You don't know what you're messing with.
Yeah, you have no idea what you're fooling with. You might as well have a can of matches and a gallon of kerosene. It's Russian roulette. It's insanity. And they don't know it. They don't know any better. The Ouija board was basically introduced in our country as a parlor game.
Yeah, okay. I think Milton Bradley used to, or Parker Brothers, I believe it was, used to put them out.
A guy called William Fuld, I think it was, had it first in the 1890s, and he was based out of Baltimore, Maryland. Well, in 1966, Parker Brothers takes over, and they move the whole operation to Salem, Massachusetts, and they were creating them here.
Great.
and not only that, the game of Clue, which was also produced by Parker Brothers, was based on a murder here in Salem in 1830, the murder of Captain Joseph White.
Joseph White, you said?
Captain Joseph White. It was based on, this is one of the stories on our ghost tour, depending on which tour guide's leading the tour, how much time we have. But the murder game of Clue was based on the murder of Captain White. Who was murdered in what room with what weapon? And Parker Brothers was based in Salem, which they don't exist anymore here. But anyway, back to the Ouija boards and seances. And people fool with this stuff, and then they don't understand, why are the ghosts here? Well, how come I can't get any sleep? How come I'm having all these negative situations and incidents and accidents and stuff like that? And I just tell them, my God, why in the world would you fool with these things? Because they don't know any better. So the only way they're going to be able to get rid of the spirits, you can appeal to them. You can certainly pray for the spirits to move on, but these malevolent ones, you're going to have to get a professional in there, whether it's a medium, a channeler, or perhaps even a Catholic priest to do some kind of exorcism eventually.
Now, how do you feel about exorcism? I know you said in your book
they don't work 90% of the time. Well, first of all, it takes an awful lot of paperwork and red tape to even get permission from the church to do an exorcism. Incredible amount of red tape. And even when they try to do the exorcisms, they don't work. The main reason being, as far as I'm told and talking to much more experienced ghost professionals than myself, if a spirit, an individual who dies, who's now a spirit, a ghost, who is not religious on the physical plane while they were alive, they do not change or become more religious all of a sudden when they're dead or at all. They're the same mindset.
They just ignore it.
The same emotions, mindset, everything that they were while they were on the physical plane. So if they're not religious, and you start splashing holy water and waving crucifixes and screaming, the power of Christ compels you to get out in 5 minutes, it's not going to work. And they're going to get offended, they're going to get angry, and then they can have negative reactions. And I did go to a house in New Orleans where these people did have a Catholic priest do an exorcism, and it didn't work. I mean, somebody was murdered in the house. And they put a crucifix on the wall, and it would get slapped down and things like this. So it just did not work.
No, I know Lorraine Warren, Amityville Horror. I know you're familiar with who I'm talking about, but for those that didn't catch my show in a week, she's Roman Catholic, her and Ed, and they strongly believe in the Catholic Church and in the exorcisms by priests. And I know that Malachi Martin was a good friend of theirs. Also, and he as well as they talk a lot about because you were saying the red tape that's associated with going through the diocese's head and saying, hey, I want to do an exorcism. They're like, are you crazy? The Catholic Church doesn't want to be associated this way anymore.
Right.
They don't want people. We're believing in all these evil spirits. That was the Catholic Church of old. This is the Catholic Church of new.
Right.
But she said that a lot of Catholics, and Malachi Martin had mentioned that before, that a lot of people that needed these exorcisms or thought they needed exorcisms would go out and find priests that were willing to, what they called underground priests, that were willing to go and do it without the permission of the church.
And what happened? Did they work?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. According to what they told me.
But that's the thing. I mean, sometimes the priest would come in and do an exorcism, and they would think, okay, that's it, things are quiet now, and sometimes it doesn't take one time. It
starts back up again. Yeah.
Times, or maybe it won't ever work until you know what you're dealing with or who. Now, I personally have never been called into an investigation, and it turned out to be a demon or Satan or anything like that. Most of what I'm dealing with are annoying spirits to a point, or people are just scared because this thing will not leave. They don't understand what's happening. And sometimes, if they just do a title search, go to the record office of deeds or whatever it is and find out who lived there, they can go to their local newspaper office and go into what's called the newspaper morgue, the back issues, or maybe microfiche now, and find out, because of the name, is there any cross-reference with accidental deaths, murders, suicides, things like that on the property or that name, who lived there or whatever. And then they can kind of narrow down who the ghost might be. But no, I personally have never encountered, a real malevolent spirit that was, trying to kill somebody or something like that.
Well, what do you believe in demons? Do you believe in personification of evil?
Well, serial killers, yeah.
In the Judeo-Christian sense of the term.
I don't know, that's kind of a stretch. And believe me, I was raised Roman Catholic, too.
Oh, really? Okay.
I got away from it as soon as I was 18. I was gone. I don't personally myself believe in demons. There's good and bad in everything. People, animals, whatever. But I don't believe a Satan or the devil, whatever. I think a lot of people are more prone to the dark side, violence, mayhem, murder, whatever, for whatever. And they say, they got their own personal demons, but I don't see that as Satan on their shoulder.
Or I know some people, some people have taken it as far as, especially the charismatics, some of the offshoots have taken it as far, I know, as saying, we're gonna exorcise the demon of depression or alcoholism or. Yeah,
and they're the same idiots that handle snakes and drink strychnine.
Some do.
That they're, their faith in God. They're a bunch of questionable characters.
Questionable characters.
They should be working at like a carnival freak show.
What are your views or your beliefs as far as what happens to you when you die?
Well, hopefully you go to light.
Okay.
Get your reward. Who knows? Who knows? We do know that there is some kind of energy form that can come back to Earth or hang around on the earthly plane. I sincerely believe that as a ghost hunter. I didn't used to, but I do now. As far as what really happens, who knows? I'll tell you when I die. I have absolutely no idea for sure. But I do know that something's been looking out for me on a couple of occasions, and I don't know who it is or why.
I'm just wondering, as far as you have all these people that have died over all these many centuries that the Earth's been here, and obviously they all can't be running around the planet at the same time haunting everywhere or anyone or.
No, but there's reasons why they stick around, and I don't want to bore your.
No. That's what I'm curious about.
But basically, if there's been a very violent, sudden, traumatic death, murder, suicide, car crash, plane crash, whatever, something like that, the spirits many times don't even realize they're dead, and they tend to hang around the spot where they died or right close to it. Okay, right close to it. Sometimes the anniversary date of that individual's death is the one time they will actually appear also only on the spot where they died. If a ghost has a strong emotional attachment to a property, a building, physical possessions left behind somewhere, and, of course, loved ones left behind that they feel need protection or guardianship, they can come back or tend to hang around to protect them for as long as they feel it's necessary, and then they move on. Finally, they go on to their, hopefully, just reward, their peace, whatever. Also, celestial activity can trigger an increase in paranormal activity. Full moons, electrical storms, eclipses, strange planetary occurrences will increase paranormal activity.
Really?
So some of the reasons ghosts, hang around is, they have unresolved business. Perhaps they want justice. I go to Gallows Hill. Gallows Hill Park today in Salem, Massachusetts, is in the vicinity of where they believe they hung the witches in 1692. Now, nobody knows exactly X marks the spot because there's never been a memorial plaque up there. The hanging tree doesn't exist because trees don't live that long here from 1692.
Yeah,
the crevasse where they tossed 19 innocent victims after they hung them has closed in upon itself. So that has, covered up all the bones, remains, etc. So we don't know exactly where it is, but according to the local historians, Gallows Hill Park is in the general vicinity before all the geological changes. I go up into the woods in that area and get a lot of ghost activity. I mean, ectoplasm, orbs, etc. And I think you saw one of those photos on the website where there's a ghost walking by me, and you can see the ectoplasmic head, the body, the legs, etc.
Yeah, well, what is ectoplasm?
Ectoplasm is a white, cloud-like, fluidy-looking substance that can take the shape of a human being. It can morph into other shapes, but you can't physically touch it. It just, you put your hand right through it, you wouldn't.
So like fog.
It's cloud-like, it's fog-like, etc. Whereas orbs are round; they're a circle of light, and it could be bright white solid, it could be transparent light gray, or variations of it. But an orb is always a round, circular manifestation of a spirit, whereas ectoplasm is more fluid-like. It can take the shape of a human or a morph, but it's bigger.
Now,
and longer.
Can you touch an orb?
Can you touch an orb? No.
Okay. It moved too fast.
These things I've never even seen with my naked eye, although I've caught photos of them, right in front of me with a high-speed film because I'm shooting in a pitch-black area, and the flash goes off, and it's just a big whiteout, and I can't see anything but brilliant white light.
Now, I have a friend who goes out and does, he's a film school graduate. He goes out and does documentaries with a couple ghost hunters. I know that they've got some books out and things of that nature, but I've seen actual, some of his video footage, and it was just amazing. The orbs that he caught on the tape, and they just flew by the camera. It's like,
right.
Oh my gosh, that's
they're moving so fast that most of the time the human eye won't even see it, or they're too small, whatever. But with the high-speed film, of course, they're able to capture it, what we can't see, and it's amazing. I mean, they could be 6 inches or 6 feet away, and you don't know they're there. But I'll tell you what, when the spirits are there, your hair, if you're like me, stands up. You get that ice-cold sensation. You know it's coming. Or the worst sensation I ever had, which is in my book, at the Myrtles Plantation, the most haunted house in America. It was myself and one other ghost hunter. We had the whole run of the mansion all night long.
I remember reading about that.
And when the meter went off, like 10:30, whatever at night, the ghosts were there, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I said, William, look at my arms, look at my arms, look at my hair, and the goosebumps. And then I got this ice-cold jolt of like electricity running through my whole body, and I think the spirit may have touched me, like the ghost actually physically put its hands on me, and it was just not like an electrical shock, but an ice-cold jolt of something, power running through me. It was just amazing. Just amazing and so strong.
Yeah, I know on page 24 of your book, you've actually got a picture of the spirit racing through the front entranceway above the piano.
That's where the man died, right above, on the 17th step of the Myrtles Plantation. He was shot on the porch, and he staggered up to the 17th step, right about where the orb had just raced by, and that's where he died. And I was actually standing by the piano underneath the stairs when the meter went off, and the meter was across from me on the other side of the hallway. I was close enough to set it off. I had my back to it. I was just looking at a photo, actually under that staircase, and the man had been shot. Where you're looking at that photo, the man had been shot at the front door entranceway, staggered up to the 17th step, and died in his wife's arms. And he's just one of the many ghosts that haunts the Myrtles.
I can understand why.
Yeah, well, there's been hanging, there's been poisoning, there's been shootings, a lot of death at that plantation. Plus, unfortunately, they built it over an old Indian burial ground.
Oh, that's asking for it.
Mistake number one, do not build on old Indian burial grounds.
Well, you've heard about this thing that's going on in Roanoke now. That's what I've heard anyway about.
rules.
And they're seeing, they've had the state troopers and the state police, whatever, have had so many calls of people seeing Indians and teepees on the bridge and horses, Indians on horseback crossing. That they're sending a cop car out there every hour, on the hour, just so people won't stop to try to check it out and see what's going on.
Oh my gosh!
And this I was told about this a couple of weeks ago from one of the station managers was telling me about it. But I was like, oh my gosh, that's insane. He's like, yeah, I figured you ought to know about this. I figured you'd be interested in that. I'm like, oh, thanks.
Well, remind me when I drive down to New Orleans from Mardi Gras, not to take that bridge.
Okay.
So it doesn't surprise me in the least. It really doesn't. Building around graveyards or moving human remains around, not a good thing.
Well, same with Amityville Horror. Once again, that house was built on they found out some kind of ancient Indian site. Where they had their deranged, I believe. Yeah, they kept their mentally insane.
Because, the book, The Amityville Horror, was a hoax. The people who moved into the building and a reporter conspired together to create The Amityville Horror. It made a great book sale. It made a great movie, but it was all BS. They admitted that later on. The true story, basically, no, you can check it out. But the true story was that Ronald DeFeo, or whatever his name was, did actually, shoot his family to death there. So, of course, there would be hauntings of the ghosts. But as far as the red eyes outside the window and the flies and the priest and all this other stuff, it was completely fabricated nonsense. And they admitted they just did it to make some money. The book, The Amityville Horror, that was written by that reporter, I can't even remember.
Jay Anson.
Jay, yeah. And the couple who were living there at the time, allegedly, that all these events were going on, they admitted years later that most of it was a hoax, that they had made it up with a reporter to sell a book and make money, and of course it was turned into a movie which made money. But most of what they said was happening in the house was a hoax just to make the money. I'm not saying that the Amityville house is not haunted. Definitely, when you have 4 or 5 people shot in cold blood, of course there's going to be spirits remaining behind. But as far as the book itself, written by that reporter and the couple who lived there, that was a hoax, and they admitted it years later. And if you don't believe me, you can find out. You can find out.
But they were just on Lou Gentile's radio show the other, a couple months ago.
Who?
Catherine, not Catherine, George, her husband. The person that lived there, George Lutz, and Lorraine Warren was there. And John Zaffis was there. They were just telling the story of the house. Now, they say that a lot of the book, there were a lot of inconsistencies because Jay had written the book based on tapes that they had given him, and he didn't. Lorraine says that since he didn't understand demonology and didn't understand a lot of the things that went on, that some of the things got mixed up. And I don't know. That's really all I know about it as far as that goes. But I know Stephen Kaplan had written a book.
There was a big thing about it being a hoax.
Yeah, Stephen Kaplan wrote a book called The Amityville Hoax.
Yeah.
He was one of the first, supposedly the first investigators, and he had a beef with Lorraine and Ed for a long time, and they were a lot of stuff.
Yeah, but when I don't think they were involved with it when this first guy did the book. I mean, this Jay guy, were the Warrens involved with it?
Yes, they were. They're even mentioned towards the end of the book.
How come they weren't mentioned in the book, or how come they weren't in the movie?
I don't know.
Yeah.
But they are in the book, the original book, which is actually, believe it or not, that book is out of print. Can you believe that?
Oh yeah.
I mean, as many copies as it sold in the 70s and I'm sure the 80s. It's out of print now. Well, let's get on to something else here.
Okay. All right.
Now, the Ghost of Giles Quarry.
Yeah, that was one of the victims of the witchcraft hysteria in 1692.
And that's in your book. You mentioned it briefly, but I was wondering because you had said something about the jail burning in 1999 and him appearing before disasters. A lot of times,
right.
The ghost.
He does appear before storms, fires. Although nobody knows what's going to happen when he does show up. But in 1999. Some people saw an old man wandering through the cemetery at the back, kind of hunched over, and they didn't know if he was sick or, having some kind of attack or what was going on, and they went into the cemetery to help him, and he just disappeared. And later on that night, the jailkeeper's house burnt down. Now, that was not some kind of spooky thing. A bunch of teenagers were trespassing and had snuck into the old jailkeeper's house. which they've been prone to doing for years and years. But this time, they decided to throw Molotov cocktails against the wall.
Oh, my
And they set it on fire in July of 1999. And
that was a historical area, too, wasn't it?
Huh?
That was a historical area, too, wasn't it?
It's right next to the jail.
Yeah.
And it is a historical building, but they burned it up from the inside out. I mean, no roof, no windows, no doors. The beautiful 3-story spiral wooden staircase, they burned that to a piece of charcoal. I have been in the old jail here in Salem, which is very haunted. I've also been in the jailkeeper's house in October of 2001. I did get a private tour from the city, and I had to crawl on my hands and knees to get up to the second floor in the jailkeeper's house to, take photos, because I know both sites are very haunted. And I caught just a huge, what I like to call a family of orbs on the second floor of the jailkeeper's house. And the jailkeeper told me, not the jailkeeper, the man who gave me the tour, said that one of the earliest jailkeepers and his wife had raised 7 children to adulthood inside the building, and then she died of natural causes years later inside that jailkeeper's house. And so to me, she has a good reason to stay behind. She's emotionally attached to the property, raised all her children there. They had many happy memories. Her husband was still living there when she died, so I think it is the whole family still living there. At least I like to think so.
No, I have a question. It's I would think pretty relevant. Okay, you have your orbs, which are ghosts. You have your ectoplasm. Are they ghosts also?
Yes.
Okay. And then you also have a physical, a physical apparition, looks like a person.
That's the best one you always hope to get on film.
Why do they differ so much?
I think it just depends on how long they're there and what their emotional attachment is. I mean, the emotional attachment can keep them there longer or more frequently. This is my personal opinion. And ghosts are moving. They're constantly moving, whether they're going to their respective release or whether they're coming back to do a residual haunting or whatever. But we're just capturing them, for a fraction of a second. Or if they happen to hang around for a couple seconds, you could actually see the vision manifesting from head to toe, which is rare. Not that I have seen faces of ghosts, things like that. I've seen shadowy figures behind me, things like that. But to actually see them head to toe in full detail, eyes, teeth, everything, clothing, is pretty rare.
Yeah,
I really feel like it's whatever amount of time they're actually there for, emotionally, whether it's 5 whole seconds, 1 second, a half a second, etc. That's why they appear in these different forms.
No, I know a lot of people believe in that. I don't know what exactly you would call it, but it's like a movie being played over and over again, a scene played out.
Residual haunting. Residual haunting.
That's it. Okay.
It's the same thing over and over and over.
Yeah.
And it may be the last thing they did before they died, or it could be the last thing they were living through, the last couple moments, like in England, some of these castles that I want to go to. This woman was going to get her head chopped off by the king or whoever, and what her ghost does is she screams and runs through the hallway of a certain part of the castle, and that is the only thing she does, again and again and again. Her terror, her fear was so overwhelming, it just saturated that particular spot. Just like the last moments of somebody's life, they were murdered, however they were murdered, whether it was brutally or suddenly on a spot. This is what they're living through, is that anguish again and again and again until they can move on, or somebody helps them move on, or whatever to leave.
No, do they eventually move on? In most cases.
No. I mean, some don't. I mean, you go to Europe and they've been there for 300-400 years and they're still there. Now, has anybody tried to help them move on? I don't know. What you can do to help a ghost move on is, even if you don't know who it is or why they're there, is to say, look, maybe you don't realize that you're dead now, but your time on earth is over. You do not have to stay here. You do not have to be afraid, but you must move on. Look for familiar faces. Look for people who've died that you know, your relatives, brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, children. If you recognize anyone, they're there to help you. They're there to bring you towards the light. You must go towards the light. Do not be afraid. I forgive you. I'm going to pray for you. Please, move on. Go to your rest. And then whatever your religious background is, I don't care if you're Catholic or you're a Buddhist or you're a or you're a voodooist, or whatever you are, just say a prayer for this person and do it every day, every night for a week, and see if you can't get them to move on. Yeah, but don't be splashing holy water.
Breaking out the crucifix and the rosary beads, right?
Yeah, your parking meter expired. You must go. It's not going to work like that. But you can pray for them to move on, and many times they will. They will.
I know there's a similar story, a small community near the studio here, and it's called Jamestown. It's a small town in North Carolina. And they have a story of a lady that comes out to the bridge every year around the prom time. And it's been in the newspaper several times. So many people have claimed to spot her. She comes up and she's standing on the side of the road, and people will pull over and say, "Hey, can I give you a ride? You look like you need help." And she says, "Yes, I need a ride to my house. Car broke down, something similar to that. I don't remember all the details of the story, but anyway, they take her back to her house. She gives them directions. They pull up, and when they get in the driveway, they turn around and she's not there anymore. She's gone. She's disappeared. So a lot of people walk up to the door and say, "Hey, do you know a girl that lived here?" And it turns out that this girl died back on her prom day so many years ago. And would that be an example of someone helping a spirit along, or
no,
just making it?
That is a residual haunting. But you know how many stories I've heard?
Similar to that.
Story in Chicago, New Orleans. Now, where are you from?
Urban
legends cut the crap. Okay. Yeah, I've heard that a million times, but it's almost every city has one of those. It's kind of expected. Or every cemetery has the lady in white. Ooh,
oh yeah.
There she is again. A lot of that stuff. One of the reasons I do ghost hunt is to dispel a lot of the nonsense. There was when I went to Spidergate. There was a lot of BS on the internet about, you've got to enter the 8th gate, and if you make it to the 8th gate, you'll probably die because most people can't make it through that 7th gate. It's too terrifying. And what a load.
You just walked on through, right?
Well, no. There's no 8 gates. My ghost hunter associate Sage and I went to the place outside of Worcester, Massachusetts, and found this place, and it's a tiny little cemetery in the woods with a low stone wall, and it does have a set of main gates, very low, that have kind of a spider web design in it, and there's a third gate off to the left that's, broken down and rusted. But the cemetery is just very small, and that's it. Once you go through the gate, there are no more gates. There's a bunch of trees, and we got there before sunset in the middle of winter. It was in snow, etc., but it was very haunted, and there's pictures of it in my book with the spirits in the trees moving around, and the meters would go off. But I'm telling you, as it got darker and darker after sunset, it got really, really creepy. And I'm sure in the summer, a lot of, nitwits go there, and they burn their black candles, and they try to conjure the dead and all this other nonsense, because that's what it's pretty much for. These people who have no idea what they're doing, no clue, and they think they can, deal with the dead or the dark side of the undead by going to some place like this. So finally they took all the street signs down so you can't find it and make it very difficult. And, I went there and I wrote about in the book that there's no 8 gates and there's not this and there's not that and blah, blah, blah. So a lot of it is just urban nonsense. Okay. And don't go there.
Don't go there.
Yeah, don't desecrate the grave site. It's still an active burial site.
And people's families are buried out there.
Yeah.
Just respect.
One of the last burials was this past spring in May because the woman died in, I think, January, but the ground's frozen. Typical New England. You can't bury anybody till the spring thaw. So they couldn't bury her till May. But, yeah, it's still used as an active cemetery, and they don't appreciate you having specks on the graves and liquor bottles and burning black candles and all this other stuff. It's very disrespectful. It's unkind. It's unnecessary. And, I can't tell people enough to keep out a graveyard. It's one thing to do a little ghost hunting, but please do not violate the city ordinances, and don't be disrespectful to the dead. You think they're dead. They're not really dead. They're still very much aware of your presence.
And you will get arrested if you're in a graveyard after night in most cities.
Well, in Salem, if you're in a cemetery after dark, believe me, you will not only get a free set of bracelets, and when they put you in the police car, if you're real nice, they'll turn on the siren and the pretty blue lights.
Hey, free ride in the police car.
Yeah. I mean, if you're real nice, they'll turn on the siren, too, as a special request. But you really don't want to do that here in Salem. And unfortunately, October's around the corner, which is my favorite month.
Oh, but you're going to get so slammed with tourists.
All the loonies into Salem, and they all think they're witches or something special or whatever.
Yeah.
And they do a lot of bizarre things in the cemeteries, and there's a lot of graffiti and broken tombstones after Halloween is over. And we really don't appreciate that here. So you better look out. If you come into Salem to do some of that nonsense, the cops are going to be looking for you.
Oh, but they have their hands full in October.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man.
We call it Rocktober. Rock and roll Salem.
I hear that. So you've been in Salem how long again now?
I moved here in March of 2000.
All right, so 2 years.
Yeah.
And how do you like Salem compared to New Orleans?
Drag.
The weather, I'm sure, in the wintertime, I bet it gets a lot colder up there.
This summer was just like New Orleans. It was 90 to 100, 100% humidity. They had heat wave after heat wave. I might as well have been down at home, you know. It's so hot. But I do love the cold air. I do love the snow. That's why I moved up here, because I want to get away from that. But the summer's just been brutal. So it's actually in the 60s today. So this is just a touch of fall. But, no, it's a great city. I mean, it's clean. It's quiet. The crime is minimal. It's very quaint. It shuts down in the winter completely. For me, it's great for the ghost tours. I enjoy it. But it's very, very quiet after dark here.
No, how long are your tours out there?
75 minutes.
Okay, and that's every tour you run, the daytime tours included, or just?
No. I do something special in October. It's the Witchcraft Cemetery tour, where we take you to the old Bearing Point Cemetery in the daytime only, and wander around to an in-depth look at the gravestones, the art, the epitaphs, who's buried there, and then we do some of the highlights of the witch trials, witchcraft hysteria, if you call them highlights. And then we go to the Witch Trials Memorial and talk about some of the people that were executed back then and their stories. And I do a big portion on voodoo on that tour, how voodoo played a big role here in the witchcraft hysteria, because the slave woman, Tituba, was a voodoo practitioner telling the girls stories of voodoo from her homeland, and they are the girls listening to her that started the witchcraft hysteria and acting possessed by spirits and naming names, and it all kind of went from Tituba's mouth to the girls to 20 people getting hung. So we talk about the role of voodoo and witchcraft here, or the witchcraft hysteria, and then I tell them about the similarities of witchcraft, voodoo, the dissimilarities, and things like that.
Now, you still have a lot of witches in Salem, though, correct?
What I was told when I moved here, the population is less than 40,000 people, but they said there's about 2,500 witches that, practicing witches here in Salem. Now, I do not associate with the witches, the witch community here. I'm a voodooist myself.
Okay.
So it's a whole other ball game. But that's what I was told, that there's 2,500 practicing Wiccans witches here.
That's a lot, I mean, considering, the population. So.
I guess, but see, where I'm from, there's a lot of voodoo practitioners. There's 7,000 voodoo people.
No, it's true. New Orleans, yeah.
So, that's a whole different ball game, different religion, different spirits, different rituals, different everything. I'm what's called a voodoo witch or hoodoo witch in New Orleans. And so what we practice is completely different from anything up here. So I do not affiliate myself with any witches up here or covens or any of that stuff. It's not my game.
I understand. For those of you listening again tonight, you can find more information at www.spellboundtours.com, or you can call the office at 978-745-0138, and Mollie will give you any information about the tour that you would like to have. And I know I think you actually even give a student discount, don't you?
Oh, well, yes. We give student discounts. We give group discounts. We do private tours. But October is Rocktober here, as I said. It's very crazy. It's very busy, especially the last 2 weeks. So we actually add additional tours the last 2 Friday and Saturday nights in October here to handle the crowds. But we try to accommodate everybody every night. So.
Understandably so.
Yeah, we want you to come to Salem anytime. We want you to find out our history, and we want you especially to find out the haunted history with Spellbound Tours.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And also, the book Ghost Among Us is available at that website, too. I wanted to point that out again for anybody interested in that. Now, going back to the book just for a second, I know you said that you were in Alcatraz.
Yes.
How was that?
Very disturbing. Very spooky, very negative. It's overwhelming. It's a big place, actually, and we were only allowed through certain sections of it, but it is just creepy beyond belief. You can feel the spirits all over the place. You can feel the negativity. I mean, these are the worst criminals that couldn't be incarcerated anywhere else. Number one,
and they're angry.
And a lot of violent death there. Stabbing, shooting, things like that.
I think they did a thing on MTV. What's that show called? Fear Factor or something like that.
I didn't see it.
Are you familiar with what I'm talking about in the show?
MTV Fear?
Fear, maybe that's it. Fear. Yeah.
Fear Factor, I think, is where you eat bugs. And
Okay. I don't watch much TV. I'm usually too busy. But yeah, they had that Fear show. I think they went into Alcatraz one night, and they make them do these little dares and go to all these.
That really annoys me because professional ghost hunters don't go into some place and first of all, we don't have the cameras on our face the whole time.
Oh yeah.
Second of all, we don't dare each other to lay in an empty grave or sit in the executioner's chair and radio silence for 5 minutes or eat a bug, standing on my head. This is asinine. What we do is we're quiet. We're discreet. We go into haunted places. We want to hear the ghosts. We don't want to hear ourselves. We want to listen and see what the spirits are doing.
You're professionals going out to do your job like everybody else does theirs.
Yeah. I mean, this is not the WWF of ghost hunting. Go in with, all these people screeching and yelling and crying and daring each other and, one-upping. I could do this. Can you?
I was just wondering if that would be if you would put that in the category of opening yourself up to to these evil or spirits.
Well, I think they're asking for it. I don't know what they're going to get, but that kind of behavior, if you're going to be that much of an idiot, then something's going to happen to you definitely. And I can tell you, I can guarantee you, ghosts can follow you home. I've had them follow me home. My neighbors are bothered by ghosts because I do so much ghost hunting. I don't know how they get in the car or what they do to follow me home, but they do once in a while. But, like last February, I went down to New Orleans for 16 days, and when I came home, all the ghosts had left. I guess they got bored. And so they were gone from the entire building. But I do so many ghost hunts that they can follow you home from time to time. And these little kids going on these ghost hunts who have no clue how to be a real ghost hunter. They've been given a camera and an infrared, this or that.
We've seen Ghostbusters too many times.
Look at me, I'm American Idol. I don't think so, Hal. I think you're going to be, a ghost bait more than anything else. So I don't think that's a really good idea. But I've heard from somebody who knows somebody who works on the program that they'll do the same kind of show with two different groups or two different families. What's the other one where they take a family to some haunted castle?
Oh, yeah. I think ABC Family or something like that, or Fox did something last Halloween with that. Yeah.
Scariest Places on Earth or whatever it is. And whatever family makes the most noise and screams and cries the most is the one that's featured on the camera. And I just think that's it's humiliating to ghost hunters to have to see that stuff because that is not what really happens on a ghost hunt. I'm not saying these are not real haunted sites by any means. Yes, they are. But to have a bunch of, unexperienced, nitwits running around with all this stuff, look, I got all the equipment, so therefore I'm a ghost hunter, it's not right. It's a misconception. It's tweaked. It's not how real ghost hunters act, and it makes us look foolish.
And, I'm sure a lot of people, you tell them what you do, they're like, oh, you're a ghost hunter, really?
Yeah, and it's, Ghostbusters.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to call. And it's always a joke. It's always a joke. But I tell them, listen to me, okay? I am not a psychic or medium. I don't go into places and go, there's a ghost. She's got pigtails and a pink skirt. And there's a ghost. He's got suspenders and he's in a rocking chair. I don't do that. I use my scientific equipment. My equipment tells me when the ghosts are there. Even if I don't feel them, my ghost equipment is so delicate, so sensitive, it lets me know. Here they come, or they're coming now. They're here. And it alerts me to start doing your stuff. Other times, I can do it without the equipment. I go to certain places so many times. I know where the ghosts are. And I can talk to them and try and get them to appear. It's like trying to get your dog to come here, sit, roll over, whatever you're trying to do. You entice them somehow or other with a treat or, a soothing voice or whatever to try and get them to cooperate.
Yeah, that's understandable.
And you can go to a cemetery, or like I go to Gallows Hill, or whatever I do, wherever I am, and I introduce myself sometimes. It's just, not a big, hello, I'm Jack the Ripper. It's just, I'm Mollie. This is my dog, Renfield. You've seen us before. We're here to take some pictures. We don't mean to disturb you, but we're going to be here for about 10 minutes. If you want to communicate, if you want to show yourself, please go ahead. We're not here to harm you. We're just going to take some pictures and do our thing. And sometimes if I do a ritual or I start talking to spirits, they tend to cooperate, as it were.
That's great.
Well, not always, but they tend to show up. They're curious. They're curious creatures like you're curious. When you haven't seen something for a while or something unusual is happening, you know how you crane your neck, slow down your car, you come over to see what's everybody looking at. Ghosts are very similar to that kind of mentality. Even if it's a graveyard, whatever. Something's going on, there's an activity, they can come over and look at it. Why shouldn't they?
Sounds good.
Well, I don't know why. It happens that way sometimes.
Once again, that's Mollie Stewart, author of Ghost Among Us, and tour operator and owner. You can find out more about this, see some really cool ghost photographs at www.spellboundtours.com, or you can call the office there. Area code 978-745-0138. And I appreciate you being on my show, Mollie. Thanks a lot.
My pleasure.